When I bought the little blue craftsman house on Willowbend Lane, I thought I had hit peak adulthood. A steady job, a quiet neighborhood, tree-lined sidewalks, and a backyard big enough for weekend barbecues and an inflatable pool. I wasn't rich, but for the first time in my life, I felt settled. Like I had actually earned something that wouldn't be yanked away. The house smelled faintly of cedar and new paint when I moved in, exactly the kind of place where people started fresh chapters. And Willowbend? It was everything the realtor promised. Retirees watering flower beds. Families teaching kids to ride bikes. Friendly hellos from dog walkers. And a calmness you couldn't buy in the city. I'd barely finished carrying the last moving box inside when 3 people approached my driveway wearing matching navy polos embroidered with gold letters. WBHA, Willowbend Homeowners Association. The tallest of the group, a woman with perfectly curled brown hair and an unsettlingly wide smile, stepped forward. "Welcome to Willowbend. I'm Patricia, the HOA president," she said sweetly. Behind her stood a thin man with glasses and a heavy-set woman clutching a clipboard. I wiped sweat from my forehead. "Thanks. I'm Daniel, Dan." Still settling in. Patricia clasped her hands together. "Oh, we've been eagerly awaiting your arrival." The way she said it made it sound less like hospitality and more like a prediction. "We just need your signature on the community compliance agreement," the clipboard lady said, thrusting paperwork toward me. I skimmed it: curfews, yard standards, paint colors, parking rules. The standard HOA micromanaging nonsense. But nothing too insane. I'd expected as much when I bought into a structured community. "Sure," I said, signing. "Happy to follow the rules." They all exchanged a look. A knowing look. One that stretched a little too long. Patricia leaned closer. "There's also a neighborhood tradition. A gathering. We're a very connected community. Participation builds harmony." "Is this like a potluck or something?" I asked. "A sort of potluck," she said, smiling again. "We call it the Midnight Circle. It's reserved for residents after they've moved in. It happens tonight at 12 a.m. sharp." I paused. "Midnight? For a potluck?" "That's a bit late," I said. "I still have a lot of unpacking." "Oh, attendance is required," Patricia cut in, voice still pleasant but now with an edge sharp enough to cut a steak. "It's part of full membership." The clipboard woman nodded vigorously. "Everyone attends." "Everyone." I blinked, unsure if this was a weird neighborhood quirk, a prank on the new guy, or an HOA hazing ritual. "Okay," I said slowly. "Where exactly?" The thin man finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "The clearing at the end of Willowbend Trail. You can't miss it." I hadn't even known there was a trail. Before I could ask more, they turned in unison and walked away, like a synchronized HOA marching band. By 11:45 p.m., I was staring at the clock, pacing. The whole situation felt bizarre, but I didn't want my neighbors to hate me on day one. Besides, curiosity was gnawing at me. So I grabbed a jacket, stepped outside, and immediately regretted it. The street was empty. Not quiet, empty. No porch lights. No dog barking. No cars passing. The entire neighborhood looked frozen, like a photograph taken after everyone evacuated. A faint glow pulsed from the end of Willowbend Trail. I followed it. The trail was narrow, swallowed by tall trees that blocked moonlight. The deeper I walked, the more I felt the temperature drop. After about 5 minutes, I reached a circular clearing surrounded by old oak trees. Lanterns hung from branches, casting warm golden light over maybe 20 residents, all dressed casually as if they'd just stepped out for groceries. Patricia stood in the center, hands clasped. "Welcome, Daniel," she said. Our newest member. I swallowed, suddenly aware that all eyes were on me. What is this exactly? I asked. A tradition, she replied. A commitment to the unity of Willowbend. A way of keeping peace. The residents slowly formed a ring around me. A midnight circle. Nobody looked angry. Just expectant. Too expectant. Patricia motioned to a small wooden stand. On it sat a ceramic bowl filled with dark soil and a smooth stone carved with the initials WB. Every resident places their hand in the soil, touches the stone, and speaks their promise. What promise? I asked. A man behind me whispered. To never break from the community. A chill ran down my spine. Patricia's smile widened. Just a symbol of belonging. It binds us. Keeps our neighborhood strong. People began chanting softly, not anything supernatural or strange, just words repeated in rhythm. Harmony, unity, Willowbend. Harmony, unity, Willowbend. I stepped back. I didn't know the HOA required this. Patricia's voice softened, but her eyes didn't. Oh, but it does. And refusing makes things complicated. The circle tightened. One homeowner shut the wooden gate to the trail behind me. Another dimmed a lantern. Patricia held out the bowl. Daniel, she said quietly, place your hand in the soil. My heart hammered. The chanting grew louder. The ring closed tighter. This wasn't a potluck. This wasn't a welcome. This was something else entirely. And as every pair of eyes stared at me with unnerving anticipation, one terrible truth hit me. I hadn't moved into a peaceful community. I had stepped into a neighborhood that didn't ask for loyalty. It demanded it. The chanting pulsed through the clearing, steady and rhythmic. Harmony, unity, Willowbend. Like a heartbeat that didn't belong to me. 20 residents stood shoulder to shoulder in a perfect ring, their lantern-lit faces expectant, almost hungry for my participation. Their shadows stretched across the forest floor, reaching toward me like fingers. Patricia held the ceramic bowl out again. Go on, Daniel, she said with a smile softer than silk and twice as suffocating. A simple gesture. Soil, stone, promise. I tried to make light of it, my last attempt at normalcy. I'm not really a ritual guy, I joked. Nobody laughed. The chanting didn't break rhythm, didn't falter, didn't even acknowledge my words. It rolled on like a low hum from a machine. Patricia's smile thinned. It's not a ritual. It's a tradition. Looks like a ritual. A man behind me stepped closer, too close. That's what outsiders say. Outsider. The word stung more than it should. Patricia took one deliberate step forward. One hand in the soil. A touch of the stone. Then you'll be a full resident, Daniel. One of us. She said it like being one of them was a privilege. A prize. A destiny. But my instincts were screaming. I need more information, I said cautiously. What does this promise actually mean? The chanting stopped. Instant silence. You don't realize how terrifying silence can be until 20 people turn it into a weapon. Patricia set the bowl on the pedestal and clasped her hands behind her back. It means you live in peace with us, she said softly. You follow our rules. You embrace the community. You don't cause conflict. That sounds reasonable, I said slowly. But why midnight? Why the secrecy? The residents' eyes flicked toward one another. A collective nervous tick. Finally, the thin man with glasses spoke. It's always been at midnight. Always. Since the beginning. The beginning of what? Patricia lifted her chin. The founding of Willowbend. Something in her tone told me that was as much as she was willing to explain. I glanced at the trees. At the narrow trail behind the gated entrance. At the lanterns flickering like silent witnesses. I thought of all the unsettling things I'd seen since the moment I signed the HOA papers earlier that day. The synchronized way they walked. Their 2 long stares. The matching navy uniforms. Their insistence on full membership. This wasn't community. This was control. And if I put my hand in that bowl, it felt like a door I wouldn't be able to shut again. Look, I said, my voice steady, I'm not joining anything until I understand what I'm agreeing to. Gasps rippled through the circle. The heavy woman with the clipboard spoke up. We all do it. Every single resident. It's your duty. Duty? I repeated. Patricia stepped close enough for me to smell the floral perfume on her wrist. If you refuse, she said quietly, you don't belong here. I took a step back. I bought a house. I signed the HOA rules. I mow my lawn. That's belonging enough. Her smile evaporated. You don't understand how Willowbend works. Oh, I think I do. And that was when everything changed. The man with glasses reached forward to block my retreat. 2 people behind me shifted to close the gap. The circle tightened, like a noose. You don't get to walk away, someone whispered. Everyone joins the circle, another said. Everyone. I felt my pulse thudding in my throat. I raised my hands, palms outward. Back up. Right now. But instead of backing up, Patricia gave a small signal, barely a tilt of her head, and 4 residents stepped forward. Not touching me. Not grabbing me. Just crowding in. A human wall. The message was clear. They weren't going to let me leave. A cold pressure settled in the pit of my stomach. Daniel, Patricia said, voice soft as cotton but twice as dangerous, the community depends on unity. Disharmony cannot be allowed. You're talking like I joined a cult. Her eyes flicked, just for a moment. A crack in her facade. Then she smiled again. Don't be dramatic. Willowbend is a safe community because we're all aligned. Aligned? I echoed. Or controlled? She didn't answer. Instead, she lifted the ceramic bowl again and held it out. Last chance, she said. The residents around me inhaled in unison, like they were holding their breath for my decision. My heart hammered. I couldn't give in. Not here. Not like this. I'm leaving, I said firmly. The thin man with glasses shook his head. Nobody refuses. Ever. Then I'll be the first. I pushed through the smallest gap I could find, between 2 elderly residents who were more startled than strong. The moment I broke the ring, voices erupted. Stop him. Don't let him leave. He can't walk out. Someone grabbed my sleeve, but I yanked free and dashed toward the gate. Feet pounded behind me, too many, too fast, too close. I shoved the wooden gate open so hard it slammed against a tree, then sprinted down the trail, flashlight app shaking in my hand. The forest blurred around me. Branches scraped my jacket. My breath burned. Behind me, the sound of pursuit grew louder. They weren't walking anymore. They were running. I burst out onto Willowbend Lane, stumbling into the street. A porch light flickered on across the cul-de-sac. For a moment, I hoped someone might help. But the figure who stepped outside, a man in his 60s, simply stared at me. And then he whispered. You should have done the ritual. He didn't call for help. He didn't move. He just watched calmly as the midnight circle emerged from the trail behind me. I backed away slowly, realizing the truth. This wasn't a small group of fanatics. The whole neighborhood was in on it. I ran across my lawn and up my porch steps so fast I nearly tripped. My keys shook in my hand as I jammed one into the lock, shoved my door open, and slammed it behind me. I threw the deadbolt, then the chain, then pressed my back against the wood as if my weight alone could reinforce it. Outside, footsteps slowed. Then stopped. The porch light glowed faintly through the curtain, illuminating vague silhouettes, 4, maybe 5, standing on the walkway. They weren't trying to break in. They weren't shouting or pounding on the door. They just stood there. Watching. Waiting. My breathing was jagged. My mind raced. My heart felt like it might burst through my chest. I forced myself into motion, grabbed my phone, and dialed 911. The operator picked up instantly. 911, what's your emergency? There's a group of people from my HOA outside my house. They chased me from a forest trail. They want leave. The operator paused. A long pause. What neighborhood are you calling from? Willowbend. Off Sycamore Drive. Another silence. Then. I'm dispatching an officer, she said carefully, but please remain inside and do not engage with them. Her tone wasn't standard professionalism. It was something else. Something edged with familiarity. Almost like she wasn't surprised. Like she knew about Willowbend. As I hung up, the silhouettes dispersed, vanishing down the sidewalk, returning to their houses as quietly as they'd arrived. No threats. No confrontation. Just a silent withdrawal. A strategic one. Like they knew the police were coming. The realization made my stomach twist. The officer arrived within minutes, a tall man in his mid-40s with thinning hair and an expression that looked permanently tired. He stepped inside after I unlocked the door and introduced himself. I'm Officer Grant. You're Daniel, right? I nodded. How'd you know my name? You're new here, he said simply. Small town. People talk. His eyes flicked around my foyer, noting the unopened boxes, the moving blankets, the framed photos still leaning against the wall. Proof that I had barely started my life here, and that it was already unraveling. So, he said, leaning against the wall, tell me what happened. I recounted everything, from Patricia's friendly welcome to the midnight invitation to the chanting circle to the attempted cornering in the woods. Officer Grant listened, hands on hips, face unreadable. When I finished, he exhaled through his nose. Yeah, he muttered. Figured this might happen. That was not the reaction I expected. You figured? I repeated. What does that mean? He scratched his jaw. Willowbend is a unique community. Unique? I nearly barked a laugh. They tried to trap me in the woods. He lifted a hand. Not trap. Pressure. There's a difference. Pressure? Are you serious? Grant sighed. Look, I'm not defending them. But you need to understand something, Willowbend's HOA is old. Older than the town itself, technically. They have their customs. Their midnight circle is one of them. It's a cult, I snapped. A uniformed, organized, HOA-wide cult. He didn't deny it. That scared me more than anything. Is this illegal? I asked. Not exactly. They can't force you to join anything. As long as they didn't physically touch you or block your exit, it's not technically criminal. They chased me. Did they touch you? No. Grant's shoulders lifted in a helpless shrug. Then my hands are tied. But they were waiting outside my house. And now they're not. Because I called you. He didn't argue that either. A heavy silence hung between us. Finally, Officer Grant stepped closer, lowering his voice. Listen to me carefully, Daniel. Willowbend is tight-knit. Too tight, if you ask me. But they take their unity seriously. People who don't join the ritual, they get labeled. Labeled as what? Non-compliant. Outsiders. Disruptive elements. And the HOA has a lot of influence in town, more than you'd expect for a neighborhood. A chill crept down my spine. So what happens now? I asked. Grant hesitated. They'll try again. They always do. My heartbeat skipped. Try what again? To bring you into the circle. One way or another. I stared at him. Are you telling me I should join them? He rubbed the back of his neck. I'm telling you it's the only way things quiet down around here. That was it. The quiet advice. The warning hidden inside a shrug. He wasn't saying it as a cop. He was saying it as someone who'd seen this play out before. Officer Grant walked toward the door. If anything escalates, anything at all, you call me directly. He handed me his card. But be aware, they're watching. They always watch the new ones. And with that, he left. For hours after he drove away, I couldn't sleep. I sat on my couch with every light on, staring at the front window. Occasionally, I'd see movement outside, a curtain shifting, a silhouette crossing the street, a figure pausing at the corner then continuing. Not obvious surveillance. Not threats. Just presence. By dawn, the night had dissolved into a foggy morning haze. Birds chirped. Dogs barked. Cars left for work. Willowbend was back to looking like a perfect suburban dream. But now I knew better. This wasn't a neighborhood. It was a machine. One I was expected to join. Or be crushed by. And as I stared at the HOA packet on my kitchen counter, a new fear crept in. What if the ritual wasn't just symbolic? What if it had consequences? What if refusing wasn't just inconvenient? What if it was dangerous? The night of the ritual arrived faster than I wanted. By the time the clock hit 11:45 p.m., the entire neighborhood felt staged. Every porch light glowed the same sickly orange. Every lawn decoration, once charming, now seemed positioned with deliberate symmetry, pointing toward the clubhouse like silent compass needles. Even the breeze no longer moved freely, it crept through the streets as if listening. I stood inside my house, staring at the black envelope on my kitchen counter. Midnight. Clubhouse. Enter alone. Do not speak until spoken to. My heart thudded. They thought they owned me. They thought I'd bow the same way every homeowner had. They thought I was afraid. I slipped the envelope into my pocket and grabbed my phone, checking the recording app. Battery full. I wasn't going to the ritual to join them. I was going to end it. The walk to the clubhouse felt like sinking deeper into a pit. Houses that looked welcoming in daylight now hovered like empty shells. Curtains twitched as people watched me walk past, but no one stepped outside. Not tonight. When I reached the clubhouse, the doors were already open, glowing from within like the mouth of a furnace. I stepped inside. 20 people stood in a perfect circle, all dressed in identical gray robes. Their faces were hidden behind plain white masks, no expression, no eye holes, just faint indentations where eyes should be. At the center of the circle stood Margaret, maskless, smiling that awful tight smile. She wore a robe, too, but hers was deep crimson. "Welcome, Daniel," she said, her voice echoing far more than a room that size should allow. "Tonight, you take your rightful place among us." I didn't step closer. "I'm here. What do you want from me?" "You will see." She clapped twice. A robed member stepped forward, holding a small silver bowl filled with a thick, dark liquid. Another approached with a candle taller than my arm. It wasn't blood. I knew that instantly, it smelled like heated wax and oil. Still, seeing it in that bowl sent my heartbeat into my throat. Margaret extended her hands, palms upward. Place your hands over the bowl. I didn't move. Not until you tell me what this is. A few members shifted uncomfortably. Margaret's smile twitched. You don't get to demand anything. You moved here to join us. You were chosen. Chosen? I felt a cold sweat start to build. Chosen for what? I asked tightly. Margaret stepped closer, lowering her voice. This neighborhood was built on unity, harmony, order. But newcomers, and outsiders, bring chaos unless guided. The ritual binds us. It prevents conflict. It preserves our community forever. I laughed, unable to help myself. You're threatening and stalking people so everyone behaves? She tilted her head. Rules are meaningless unless enforced. And what happens if I refuse? Her smile vanished. If one refuses the ritual, the neighborhood rejects them. Before I could ask what that meant, the robed members began humming, a low, droning sound that vibrated in my chest. The candle's flame leaned unnaturally toward me, flickering like a hand beckoning. My instinct screamed to run. But I didn't. Instead, I reached into my pocket, clicked my phone awake, and held it up so everyone could see the bright red rec icon. The humming stopped instantly. This ends tonight, I said. I'm recording everything. This goes to the police, the HOA board, the county, whoever needs to see it. I'm done playing your games. Margaret stared at me, stone-faced. Then she started laughing. Not a small laugh, a sharp, rising cackle that echoed off the walls. You think anyone will believe you? She said. You think you can hurt us with your little phone? She gestured around the circle. Everyone here signed the covenant. Everyone here agreed to obey. No one will stand with you. Maybe not, I said. But someone outside will. And even if they don't, this recording is enough to get your charter revoked. HOA disbanded. Community under investigation. You'll lose everything. For a moment, she froze. And then, something changed in her eyes. Something desperate. She lunged. I dodged just in time, sprinting toward the exit. The robed members shouted and reached for me, but I barreled through two of them, hit the door, and stumbled into the night air. Behind me, Margaret screamed, "Stop him!" I didn't. I ran. Past the streetlights. Past the perfect lawns. Past the houses where people pretended not to hear. I didn't stop running until I was home. I locked every door, every window, and slid a chair under the doorknob. My phone was still recording. I stopped it and saved 3 copies. Then I sent one to a friend, another to cloud storage, and one more to my lawyer. Only then did I breathe. The next morning, everything had changed. Police cars lined the entrance of the neighborhood. Officers walked door to door. The clubhouse was taped off. A few homeowners stood together whispering, staring at the scene like the illusion of their perfect world had finally cracked. Margaret was nowhere in sight. I stayed on my porch as an officer approached. "Mr. Carter?" he asked. "Yeah. You reported harassment, coercion, and threats from HOA members last night?" "I did." He nodded. "We've had 5 more residents come forward this morning. Seems you opened a floodgate." I exhaled slowly. "Good," I said. "It's time this neighborhood woke up." That night, for the first time since moving in, I slept peacefully. No shadows. No watching eyes. No midnight rituals. Just quiet. Exactly what a dream neighborhood should be.